Alright guys, I've got a quote by Jim Rohn, which I actually listened to quite a while ago. Probably I've been listening to Jim Rohn for a good probably a year now. He has unfortunately passed away now. He's been passed away for quite a while. He's a I don't like to use the word the kind of the statement of a motivational speaker, because he's so much more than a motivational speaker, because we have the term motivational speaker is kind of, we have a lot of people doing it, and when you get a lot of people influx in a kind of area, like a niche area, it doesn't become niche anymore. It kind of defeats the term of being a niche when you get a lot of people coming into a certain sector. The influx of people trying to make their living in some kind of sector or a niche market, it kind of becomes not as niche as it was. So the motivational speaking kind of term, it gets devalued with time. But Jim Rohn was a motivational speaker, and he has influenced my life in ways that I can't even comprehend. Seriously, I can't even put it into words how much my life has changed just by listening to Jim Rohn. I listened to mostly his audiobooks or YouTube videos, everything. I actually downloaded everything onto my computer because I was so scared of losing the content, because obviously when it's on YouTube it can soon get deleted, but he's got hours and hours of content on YouTube, and it's incredible. That I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, but the guy has passed away many years ago, and here I am now, having my whole life changed by someone who isn't even on the planet. It's just the mind, that thought in and of itself is just incredible. I mean, when I think about it, sometimes I try to think, where did my life change? And someone actually, crazy story, someone in Costa today came up to me when I was reading Genius Foods, this book here. Okay. And you can see I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but I was making my notes. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but you can quite clearly see. So I was making all my notes, highlighting all parts of the book, just because the light might be deflecting the light there. But basically I'm giving this book to my parents to read, just because it's phenomenal. Like, the more you learn, the more you realize how much how messed up the world is. But you got to be one of those people who kind of goes to the top and bypasses all the sound and all the noise from everyday living, but become smarter, happier and more productive while protecting your brain for life. Incredible book. But basically I was reading this book, and I had this book on the table ready to be read shortly after. How Not to Die. Camera for some reason isn't picking up that well. It is on autofocus, but basically the book's called How Not to Die, and this book cost me £5, and I mean, it is incredible. I'm only 5 pages in. 41 pages in. But just to list off, some of the chapters: how not to die from heart disease, how not to die from lung disease, how not to die from brain disease, digestive cancer, infections, diabetes, high blood pressure, blood cancers, kidney disease, breast cancer, suicide, depression, prostate cancer, Parkinson's disease, just to list off a few. I mean, this is the person who wrote it is a doctor and spent his majority of his life researching this stuff. And this guy came up to me in Costa, and he wanted to pick up the book and have a look, because it was on the table like that, and basically he could see the title How Not to Die pointing at him. And he came up to me, young lad, and it's probably 30, maybe 20, 26, 30, and he came up to me and wanted to have a look at it, and I said, of course you can, you have a look. And I told him, he was like, because he could see I was making all my notes, and he was asking me what I'm doing and how I got into fitness and stuff. It's just It was so nice to meet someone who showed interest. You don't often get that. So he called me a rarity. So I was quite taken back. But the quote we're going to go to today is by Jim Rohn. Okay, and it talks about, we don't get paid for bringing value. No, sorry, the opposite. We get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. Okay, it takes time, but we don't get paid for time. We get paid for the value. Okay, because people think they get paid for their time. If they got paid per hour, they could sit at home and have their paycheck come to them, couldn't they? But they get paid for the value that they bring in that hour. Okay. Now, when I say you need to become more valuable, when I talk about value, it's very important that I stress to the marketplace. Valuable cousin, yes. Valuable father, yes. Valuable person to a friend, yes, of course. But if you're not that valuable to the marketplace, which is, the world, economically speaking, the planet, the marketplace is basically reality, the world. Which job are you doing? The job you have is, how much value is it bringing? Because at the end of the day, we get paid for value. I'll try and find a quote by Elon Musk. So the quote goes something like this, or exactly like this. You get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. So you get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. So if the problem is difficult, extremely difficult, not so difficult, that is where the amount of value to the marketplace will differ, and ultimately how much income you will get. And I stress this because it's okay to have a job paying £5 an hour, but what you got, it's not about the money, it's not about the monetary terms, or the point of earning £5. What you got to ask yourself is, am I more valuable than that? How much do you respect yourself? Because like I say, this isn't me disrespecting anyone or being condescending or even disparaging. It's just me asking a question. How much do you value yourself? Because surely everyone should value themselves to a certain limit. And yes, we have the minimum wage, but the way I look at the minimum wage is, I don't look at things, with a blank slate or black and white, good or bad. I try and think of things in more of a systematic way than thinking it's good or bad. I try to actually look at the problem philosophically, ethically, and even business mindedly. So you can't just say, is the minimum wage good or bad? Well, I guess it is good because you've got to have some kind of minimum. You can't just pay people £2 an hour. But then you've got to ask yourself, well, what about if someone wants to work for £2 an hour? Well, then is that ethically okay? I mean, if someone's willing to work for £2 an hour, but then are they willing to work for £2 an hour just because they so desperately want the money? So then is it ethically plausible to pay that person £2 an hour? Because they're doing it out of desperation. Now the question is kind of turned. They're willing to work for £2 an hour, but on an ethical standpoint, is it right? Should we pay them more? Ought we pay them a little bit more? Because from an ethical standpoint, £2 an hour, we wouldn't work for the person wouldn't work for £2 an hour paying them. So should we pay them £2 an hour? So yes, I guess the minimum wage is good in a way, but at the same time, some people might want to work for less. So it's a difficult scenario, because when you set that minimum wage, what you're basically doing is you're kind of putting a cap. You kind of putting a cap on people's. Not everyone, because everyone doesn't think like this or think like that. I mean, you're kind of putting a cap. When you say, even though the word is minimum, we don't have a maximum wage. We have a minimum wage. Now, I think there was, remember Jim Rohn saying that the person who ran Coca-Cola got paid £80 million, okay, for running Coca-Cola. Now, this is when Jim Rohn was alive, so you're probably talking 1995, 2000. He got paid £80 million a year. And then he basically asked the crowd, he said, would a company pay someone £80 million a year if that company made £10 billion in a year or £100 billion in a year? Well, of course they would. The phrase he said is, it's chicken feed, it's nothing, it's pennies. If they're making 100 billion or 10 billion pound a year to pay someone 80 million, well, yes, they'll do it, because they're bringing in 10 to 100 times more than what they're paying out. So economically it's feasible. But I think that quote in and of itself, we get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. Okay, it's very important, because I think a lot of people get stuck in certain jobs and feel like this is now their life, but it's not. I don't like saying certain things, because some people interpret them in different ways, and I don't want to annoy anyone by things I say, but I feel like the minimum wage should be for people who are basically starting out on their careers, kids like me, maybe, or people who are, they're at the start of their careers, and it should be that little, like, the step. Think of the wage system, or money paid per hour or per day or per week, as like a ladder. It's a ladder to climb. The minimum wage starts off at, I don't know what the minimum wage is right now. Is it £9, possibly £8? But you got to think of it as a ladder to climb. And it's the incredible thing is, it's a ladder that is never ending. You can create your own steps in that metaphor of the ladder being as, the way of your wages. The ladder is never ending. You can earn as much as. Are there people in the world right now earning £500 an hour? Well, yeah, of course there are. Lawyers, business people earn £500 an hour. Well, they're a person. They were once a baby, just like you. So what is affecting their lives in a way that they can earn £500 an hour? And look, the money doesn't. I don't care about the money in the monetary terms. I'm not a materialistic person. Actually, I'm completely the opposite. But I don't think of money as the achievement. The achievement is the person you become. If you're receiving that kind of money, you are bringing value. You are respected. If someone pays you £1 million to come and do a talk to 100,000 students, you're valuable. They value your time in monetary terms of £1 million. Now that's incredible, because yes, there are people earning £5 and £5 to £6, £7 an hour. See, that's an incredible difference. So it's not about the money, but it's about the person you become if you're receiving that kind of money. So yes, the money is a good place to start, because it differs. It can differ, or it can show how valuable someone is. Let's say at the end of the day, people earning £5,000 an hour and people earning £50 an hour, there's going to be some variation in value that they bring to their customers, or to people that they serve. Someone earning £20 an hour is valuable to that person, so much so that they pay them £20 an hour. Maybe they can't do that job, but someone who is earning £10,000 an hour, maybe a lawyer in London, or anyone who owns a business, maybe they buy a house, they do it up a couple months, they sell it. Any kind of value is there's a distinction that the incredible thing is we can all achieve. Now, many people say, "Oh, I can't do that." Well, as soon as you say I can't do that, you've put the cap on. You've put the cap on the imagination, or the thought, the ability to even think that high. Once I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's not about saying I can't afford that. It's how can I afford that? Even if you know you can't afford it right now, you don't say I can't afford it, because now the brain stopped. You've got to say, how can I afford it? Now, as soon as you say, how can I, you ask yourself a self-fulfilling kind of question. Ask yourself a question, how can I afford it? Now your brain starts thinking, well, I earn this amount of money, I pay out this amount of money. Maybe if I didn't pay this amount of money, I could then save this for 6 months, 12 months. Now your brain starts thinking. Now you get into that, how can I, not I can't. Because as soon as you say I can't afford something, the brain stops. and you don't even go into that direction. So we don't get paid for bringing value. Oh no, sorry, we get paid. I always say, because it's part of the quote is we don't get paid for time, we get paid for the value that we bring. So I always, the quote does start off by saying we don't get paid. So I always end up starting off by we don't get paid. But basically, we get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. It takes time, but we don't get paid for the time. We get paid for the value that we bring in that time. Very powerful quote. And I will end the video on Elon Musk's quote, which I've already said, but I think it's just for emphasis. I think it's a very powerful and motivational quote. You get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. What's Elon Musk doing? He's got an electric car company, a solar panel company, a space company. Okay, these are problems. He's a problem-solving engineer and businessman. He considers himself as an engineer, not a businessman, but it's a hyperbolic statement. I would say is kind of exaggerated. He's I would see more as a businessman, but I guess he spends more time actually being an engineer than a businessman. It's because he's so successful in what he does, his businesses tend to follow his success. So I think two powerful statements there. Ones that I try and reinforce in my mind daily. I listen to Jim Rohn every single morning as soon as I awake. At least 40 to 30 minutes walking to the gym. I have it on in my head, just subconsciously going into my head. You got to keep you got to keep these thoughts coming in, because if you don't, you're soon going to become a drifter, and a drifter is not where you want to be or who you want to be. So I'm going to end the video on that. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you thought the video was informative or you learned something, you got a new perspective on a certain aspect of your life, give the video a thumbs up. I would much appreciate that, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And you got any comments, suggestions for other videos, leave them in the comment section below. Check out all my links in the description. I've got my social media on there, and subscribe to the channel and stuff like that. And other than that, guys, I will see you all in the next video.